Hello YouTube, I'm Positively Nostalgic, and in this episode I'd like to start a new series I call Talking Tunes. Well, not to be confused with Rob Paulsen's Talking Tunes, because let's face it, Rob Paulsen is the man. If you don't know who Rob Paulsen is, well, let's just say you'll learn a little bit more about him today. Today I'd like to talk about one of my favorite weekly cartoon series from the 90s. That cartoon series is Animaniacs, with music by the late great Richard Stone and produced by Steven Spielberg. Animaniacs is the story of Yakko, Wakko, and Dot primarily, voiced by the great Rob Paulsen, Tress MacNeille, and Jess Harnell. These three actors are absolutely astounding when it comes to the amount of voice works attributed to them. If you ever have a chance, check out their IMDb's. They're awesome. Point is, Animaniacs, the reason it works so well and the reason I want to talk about it today is because it's basically Tiny Toons 2.5. What I mean by that is it took all the things that worked in Tiny Toons, which I love Tiny Toons also, but it took all those things and it said, let's shake them up a bit. Let's not make them so recognizable. And they created a whole new show around the characters Yakko, Wakko, and Dot Warner. And then they took iconic things that we know and they said, okay, how can we make this a little bit different? You know, you had characters like Slappy Squirrel and her grandson Skippy, and you had Buttons, and you had Mindy, and you also had the Good Feathers. And these were things we felt like we'd seen before, but we couldn't really place them. I think part of that has got to do with the fact that the show feels like it was written for a family audience, not just little kids, but adults as well. In fact, if you're familiar with Animaniacs, you probably know the whole adage of "Good night, everybody" whenever an adult joke is said in a kids show, which is one of my favorite things about it. The thing that really speaks volumes about just how good Animaniacs is as a show is the fact that both adults and kids can watch the show and get something different out of it. Kids see this wacky, violent, zany cartoon a la Looney Tunes, while adults see all that too. They also get something intellectual out of it. Not to mention, as the Nostalgia Critic once pointed out, it probably features the only song that ever made a kid want to learn all the nations of the world. Granted, it needs to be updated, but there's actually an updated version on YouTube. Unfortunately, it's not done by Rob Paulsen. So, why talk about Animaniacs now? I'm talking about it now primarily because, I hate to say it, but we are suffering as a culture right now for a lack of good animated programming. Now, you might be saying to yourself, well, there's good shows out there, and that may be for you. But here's the thing. I have a very high standard. The 90s and the 80s gave me a very high standard for what I consider to be a good cartoon. To me, the last good cartoons were in the early 2000s, and they were some Nicktoons and a handful of Disney things. I'm primarily talking about like Hey Arnold and Kim Possible, but I digress. The reason Animaniacs should be lauded as the great show that it is because this show gave me such high standards for quality programming that I can't just watch a show like Adventure Time or SpongeBob SquarePants and just be like, oh, that's brilliant. Because to me, it's not brilliant. It's not as brilliant as what has come before. And I think that as a medium, we need to look for cartoon shows that are going to honor what's come before and try and do something different. A very good example would be the new Nickelodeon Turtles cartoon. The new Ninja Turtles cartoon has taken what was great about the classic 80s show and mixed it up a bit so that it's not exactly what you grew up on, but it's close enough that if you were to have kids and want to watch it with them, you could, because it will remind you so much of what you grew up on. Not to mention, that show also happens to star Rob Paulsen, who is absolutely awesome. So, Animaniacs. check it out if you've never seen it before. I'm pretty sure it's available on both iTunes and Amazon. And again, I'm not being paid to do this. This is a plug I'm doing on my own because I feel like Animaniacs is a show that everyone needs to be familiar with. So until next time, stay positive, stay nostalgic.